call this meeting to order. Ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And we're going to ask if Nicole would lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you would like to remain standing for the invocation, it will be done by Pastor Mike Matty.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to personally say thank you to the city of 29 Palms for its graciousness, its hard work, its servitude to its citizens. Tonight, as I give the invocation, usually we all function with a mission or a vision. I haven't looked up what the vision or the mission of, but there it is on the wall. And it's good to be reminded, but as I've been living here for the last year, I feel God's given me a vision for your city, for our city, that the prophet Hosea says, sow your seed with a view to righteousness, reap in accordance with kindness. Break up the hard ground, because it's time to seek the Lord. And as you break up the hard ground, then will come a reign of righteousness on you. God, we thank you for these words, that they're timely and they could even be our headline in the newspaper. Where we live in a land where it's hard ground, but yet we sow with kindness and goodness towards one another, and you will rain down your righteousness and your peace upon our city of 29 Palms. We thank you, O God, that it is your desire to show favor, that you're not hostile towards us, you're not angry with us, but you are for the people of 29 Palms. I pray, Holy Spirit, that tonight wisdom would be endowed upon every speaker, every thought would filter through your Spirit before it is even spoken from our lips, all to your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Pastor. Roll call.
Councilmember Scott?
Here.
Councilmember Mintz?
Here.
Councilmember Klink?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beldering?
Here.
Mayor Wright?
Here.
All present?
No closed session announcements. Any changes to the agenda? None. Announcements. These proceedings may be viewed on demand on the City of 29 Palms website at www.29palms.org. You may also live stream this meeting by going on our website and clicking on the meeting agendas link. Awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations. First, presentation to 29 Palms Rotary Club for their participation in Cash for Trash and Recycling program.
I know why, because she thought Thursday was the day.
Shake hands.
Yeah, I'll be around.
So we'll go to the normal rigmarole. Thank you for everything you've done so far. And can you tell us where you picked up trash or where you had everyone?
Yeah, our Rotary Club worked along with the 29 Palms High School Conservation Club, and they turned out in a high number. And we cleaned up the area from the Circle K on 2 Mile Road down toward Lucky Park. And I think our workers picked up about 25 to 30 bags of trash. So our town is prettier because of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you know how many bags?
25 to 30.
Wait, looks like we have the checks.
Well, look at that.
You want a picture?
Thank you, Liz.
We got to take a picture. Well, I'm going to take a picture with you, of course. Here she comes. Take the filters off. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, presentation to the city on behalf of the Hilltoppers Motorcycle Club.
Hi, I'm Jerry Grabo, and I'd like to present the mayor and the council the key to the track. We host a race the first weekend of April historically, and we just want to thank you guys for all your support with the city. So. I guess we should get closer. We should get in the same zip code, right? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I tried to use it, but they wouldn't let me ride a bike. So.
I've got two. You can have any one of mine.
No, they was looking out for me.
And Mayor, I don't, Jerry, I don't know, how many years is Hilltop? 25 years, and it's definitely been, kind of a good economic event, for the city, and, glad to host it.
Yeah, we were going to try to, we've kind of recently, this year, what we've done is we rebuilt our track in November of 2022, and in that build out, we redid the track and we put in what's called a TT track, which is something that we hope to, at some point in time, put on a race that maybe the city could get involved in, and the locals could come out. I don't, the Grand Prix is pretty, it's a serious racing competition event. And the TT event, could be something more casual, more fun, and we can have conversations with the city about how, we could use some assistance in that. We had scheduled to try to do something this November, but we're going to have to pull that. But we can try something for 2024 for sure. So.
In attendance, what do you think approximately?
For an event like that, I think it would be a slow build, because I think people.
The existing.
Oh, the existing event?
Yeah.
Okay, so this year we had just short of 1,500 entries. So that was racers racing races, not necessarily 1,500 different individuals. There were 1,500 racers racing in events. There was, I don't know how we could safely count the spectators that come in and out, because they come in and out for the event. But I know that, we tried to book rooms that weekend, and between our event and Joshua Tree, most of your hotels were sold out. So, it's hard to say. So we enjoy putting it on. We enjoy what, City of Twentynine Palms stands for. I know Mel Morris was the original owner of the land. He's since passed away. His daughter now owns the land or manages the land, and we're going to have dinner with her in the next week or so. And there's a company, an on-site website that wants to lease the property for a day to do a photo shoot. So there's other opportunities out there, for rather than just using it one time a year. We definitely would like to see that happen more often. So, but thank you again for all your help.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Proclamation recognizing April as DMV Donate Life Month. The City of Twentynine Palms Proclamation, DMV Donate Life Month. Whereas organ, eye, tissue, marrow, and blood donations are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need, and whereas more than 108,000 individuals nationwide and more than 21,000 in California are currently on the National Organ Transplant List, and on average, 17 people die each day while waiting, And whereas the need for donated organs is especially urgent in Hispanic, Latino, and African American communities, and whereas donation of tissue can save and heal the lives of more than 75 others, and whereas deceased organ donors saved more than 39,000 lives last year, and whereas any person can register to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor regardless of age or medical condition, and whereas California residents can sign up with the Donate Life California Donor Registry online at any time by visiting www.donatelifecalifornia.org, or for Spanish speakers, www.donevidacalifornia.org. And whereas California residents interested in saving a life through living kidney donation may visit www.livingdonationscalifornia.org. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of 29 Palms does hereby proclaim April 2023 to be DMV Donate Life Month, and encourages all residents to check yes online or when applying for or renewing their driver's license or ID card at the DMV, dated this 25th day of April 2023. And we don't have nobody to present that to. Okay. Okay. Next, we have proclamation recognizing April 2023 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. City of 29 Palms proclamation Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas in the United States, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, SAAM, and the goal of SAAM is to raise public awareness about sexual violence and educate communities on how to prevent it, calling attention to the fact that sexual harassment, assault, and abuse are widespread and impact every person in this community. And whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment harm our community, and statistics show 1 in 4 women and 1 in 25 men will be sexually assaulted at some point in their lives. And whereas we recognize all those who work often as volunteers on behalf of rape survivors and their families, we acknowledge the many law enforcement officers, prosecutors, counselors, correction officers, physicians, and healthcare professionals whose dedication and service help sexual assault victims. And whereas this year SAM is collaborating its 20th anniversary with the campaign theme being We Can Build Safe Online Spaces, whether they be workspaces, classrooms, or social media platforms which are respectful and safe. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of 29 Palms does hereby proclaim April 2023 to be Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and recognizes that we, the citizens of 29 Palms, have a stake in preventing sexual assault, and we will commit to ending the outrage of sexual assault by building a culture that will never tolerate sexual violence, dated this 25th day of March, or April 2023. And then we have a proclamation recognizing April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. City of 29 Palms proclamation, Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. Whereas the tragedy of child abuse and neglect affects every community in California and touches the lives of far too many citizens regardless of cultural, ethnic, religious, or socio-economic level, and whereas the threat to our children's welfare is demonstrated by a steady increase in the number and in the seriousness of reported cases of child abuse and neglect, and whereas if our children are to be productive adults, they should have the right to a childhood free from neglect, physical abuse, sexual molestation, and exploitation. And whereas it is recognized that primary prevention programs designed to work with children themselves, their parents, and caregivers within the community are successful in preventing first-time abuse situations. And whereas the observance of Child Abuse Prevention Month provides an excellent opportunity for all citizens to reflect on this tragic crime while rededicating themselves to taking an active role in the child abuse prevention activities in their communities. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of 29 Palms do hereby proclaim April 20th, 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month in the City of 29 Palms and encourages all residents to join with local community efforts in making sure that every child has the right to grow up in a stable, loving environment free from abuse and neglect. Dated this 25th day of April, 2023. And it's all signed by me. All right. Okay, council comments and reports of meetings attended. Councilmember Octavius.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I attended my first East Valley Regional Steering Committee. So that was really good. I got to connect with a lot of community-based organizations in the Morongo Valley, all working to increase access to programs for the unhoused. I attended the Easter event at Lucky Park, as well as sunrise service at Freedom Plaza. I attended the Hilltoppers Grand Prix, and I did a backpack outreach with Oasis Community Church, where we went out in the community to several homeless encampments, and we gave out backpacks full of supplies. And I just wanted to mention, too, that last month I met with the captain of the sheriff department, along with the mayor and the city manager, to discuss ways of, providing, service for our city in terms of, service and community with our youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had no official meetings this month. I did get an opportunity to go to the Hilltoppers to start. I actually got all these years. I actually got to start one of the races. That was pretty cool. They come right at you. They just kind of go around you. Also, our softball team ended up. The high school softball team ended up 8-6 this year in league, and either we're going to be third or fourth place. But CIF playoffs start next week. So, go Wildcats!
Thank you. Councilman Clint.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I would like to wish everybody here in 29 Palms and the Morongo Basin who are celebrating their birthday this month of April a happy birthday. I too attended the Hilltoppers. It was the first time that I was ever to start the motorcycles riders on their way. And yeah, they do fly by you pretty fast, so it was kind of interesting to see that. I attended a Desert Mountain Measure I meeting in Victorville, and we discussed a lot of Highway 395 going up north. They're making that a safer highway to travel on. Right now it's a 2-lane highway. They're making it a 4-lane, but it's going to take a little while. But we spent a lot of money for the right-of-way person to go out there and get all the right-of-ways so that we can continue on with our safety up towards Ridgecrest and that area up there. And that's it.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I had no official meetings since the last meeting, just some internal ad hoc committee type meetings to go to or be at. So happy birthday to everyone in April. And what else is going on? That was it. I didn't get to do the Hilltoppers. I was at school. Thank God it's almost over. So that's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So I did also attend the Hilltoppers motorcycle event, and that was really exciting, pushing that button to start those races. So I think I got a little carried away, but it was good. And then I also did the Good Friday service at Little Church of the Desert. I did the sunrise service at Freedom Plaza. The attendance was great, especially for that early in the morning. So it was really fantastic. And then we also I got a chance to be principal for a day at Oasis Elementary. And it was really an experience, I'll tell you what. I know now why I never went into education. So, dealing with, my kids is good enough. So, but it was really a lot of fun, and really got to, interact with the kids and everything like that. And I found out that I was famous, so, because they kept asking me for my autograph. So, like, all right, good to go. But it was a good time. And one of the reasons she wanted me to come there was because she's interested in starting a program for mentorship. So I want to reach out to the citizens and for you to start thinking about that, because those kids, that's what they need, is mentorship. And we need to catch them as early as we possibly can. You know, so just be thinking about that, because a lot of them there need mentors. And then I also did a Basin Transit meeting, routine stuff, nothing. The only thing major on there was, on the agenda was the employees handbook update, and we did the manager's evaluation. She got a pretty good evaluation. I think she ended up with like a 4.68 out of a 5.0. So she's doing a pretty good job, very good job. And then yesterday, I got a chance to test the pool slide, and I can confirm it's good to go. Oh, they got videos? Uh-oh.
It's on YouTube.
Well, it was really exciting, and I just want to now, I said it yesterday, but thank all the participants that came out and tested the slide. So it was good to have them out there. And so we tested it, and so it passed, and so we're good to go. So when the pool opens, have fun and enjoy. And then I do want to also wish everyone that has a birthday this month a happy birthday. All right, so with that, we're going to move to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately by the City Council. The public will be given an opportunity to comment on consent calendar items prior to the City Council action. Does anybody want to remove anyone from the consent calendar up here before I take it to the public?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, can I go ahead and pull the housing element annual progress report, please?
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, open up to the public. Anybody want to pull an item on the consent calendar or make a comment on it? All right, bring it back. Okay, looking for a motion. I'll accept number 9.
I'll make a motion we accept the consent calendar except for number 9, and I abstain from item number 11 and item number 13, possible conflict of interest.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Councilmember Scott,
Aye.
Councilmember Mintz,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Buildering,
Aye.
Mayor Wright.
Aye.
Approved 5-0.
Okay, number 9, housing element annual progress report.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm ask Community Development Director Keith Gardner to give a brief staff report.
And Frank, I've got the Excel spreadsheet down there at the bottom. And not down the other one. Yep, that one. Okay, this is a report that the state mandates that we do every year. The state has assigned us, I can't read it from here, a little bit over 1,000 something units of new housing that we are, that is our goal until the year 2020, thank you, 2029. The first year, which was last year, we only issued 3 building permits for residential units. Last year was a banner year. It was one of the highest productive years we've had for a very long time, and we're up to, we issued 25. So we have a long way to go to meet that goal, but so does every other jurisdiction in the state of California. So with the City Council's approval of this report, we can send this up to HCD as far as our annual obligation.
And just to piggyback off of that, so the state of California has identified that we're short on housing, right? We needed housing in California. So the state kind of broke up into regions. Our region, Southern California, SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments, and they came up with RHNA, which is Regional Housing Needs Assessment, and said, okay, we need these amount of houses in California. Let's divvy it up per city. And the city of Twentynine Palms had 1,047 assigned to them. we're not on track to hit this. Most cities are not on track to hit this. We don't produce houses, we just create policy. But that, just a little addition to the staff report.
Any questions for staff?
No question, but I do appreciate the staff report, City Manager Keith. I think this is very important because this is part of one of my projects with the self-help construction program, and so being able to look at this and see that last year we only did 25 houses. Next year, if we can get 10 houses that are self-help construction, I know it's such a small drop in the bucket, but I do think that it helps. And so I just encourage, my colleagues on the council to think of innovative ways to help to increase that number and collaborate with each other. Thank you.
Okay. No, you can't.
I can't.
No.
Well, public comment.
Yeah. Do we have any new building permits this year so far?
I'd have to double check, but we're in the single digits right now, so far this year.
Okay. All right, good. Okay, so now we need to approve this one. So I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the Regional Housing Needs Progress Report.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Mintz,
Aye.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Councilmember Scott,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bildering,
Aye.
Mayor Wright.
Aye.
Approved 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, no public hearing. Discussion potential action items. Housing Homeless Committee appointment. And I'll yield to Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Scott.
All right, so me and Councilmember Scott got together, went over some resumes and some applications, and we're recommending Mr. Vino and Miss Andrea Keller to the Homeless Committee, Homeless and Housing Subcommittee, say it right. And those are our two recommendations. We went through everyone's applications. Everyone was well qualified and their heart was in it, so it was a hard choice, but these are the two choices we went with after we dissected everything, and we both agreed on these, so it made it a lot easier that we both saw the same thing. Separate piles, and we came with the same conclusion, so that's always a positive thing. So these are two recommendations, and that's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and I just want to add to Mayor Pro Tem Bildering as well. A lot of qualified people applied, and so I don't want anyone to get discouraged if you didn't make a committee this time. We're always looking for committee members, and we're looking for new faces a lot of times as well. So please continue to apply.
Thank you. Okay, any questions, anything before I open it to the public? Okay, open up to the public. Any comments on this one? No green slips? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for this and getting me appointed. As all know that housing and roof over people's head is very close and dear to my heart. Thank you for appointing me to this committee.
Thank you for serving.
Okay, bring it back to the council for any comments or a motion.
I move we accept the recommendation of Andrea Keller and Vino Natharaj.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Scott,
Aye.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Councilmember Mintz,
All right.
Mayor Pro Tem Bildering,
Aye.
Mayor Wright.
Aye.
Approved 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, presentation of the preliminary two-year general fund budget for fiscal year 2023-24 and 2024-25.
Yep. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Finance Director Abigail Hernandez will be giving the presentation.
Frank, that's the wrong, yeah, that's it. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight in front of you, as Frank said, is the preliminary general fund budget for fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25, which I'll be referring to as year 1 and year 2 throughout this presentation. So here's our budget calendar or schedule for this 2-year budget. On April 18, Frank and I met with Mayor Pro Tem Bill DeRain and Councilmember Klink to go over this budget in more detail. We're going to be presenting a preliminary general fund budget today and the special, the preliminary for the special funds on May 9th. We are planning to schedule a public hearing for the adoption of the final budget on May 23rd and June 13. However, the council has until June 30th to approve a final budget if more time is needed. Next slide, please. So let me just start by giving you a brief overview of what our budget process looks like. So we use the current year forecast as our baseline or as a starting point to budget for the upcoming 2 years. And so one of the factors or some of the factors that we incorporate into the budget is input from department heads, historical spending by department, and also our council's strategic priorities, which, as you may recall, we had a meeting at the beginning of the year, and the council selected their top 10 priorities, which are listed on this slide. Unfortunately, due to budget constraints, we couldn't include all of these priorities into the budget. So we'll be discussing those in more detail in later subsequent slides. Next slide, please. So bottom line, we have a balanced budget. So I think that's something that council is, it's a priority of the council. We want to see a budget, a balanced budget, not a deficit. For year 2, even though it's small, we only have a surplus of $945. It's still balanced. Next slide, please. So our revenue sources continue to follow prior year trends, with property taxes, sales tax, and TOT being the top, our top revenue sources for the city. Next slide, please. Our top 5 revenues, as I mentioned, include property tax in lieu of vehicle license fees, sales tax, TOT, and franchise fees. For the 2-year budget, we included a 4% increase from our current year forecast for property taxes and a 2% increase for sales tax based on HDL projections. For TOT, we continue to remain conservative due to the economic uncertainty, and so we just budgeted our TOT for $1.9 million in each year. Again, we want to continue to remain conservative in that area just in case our current year trends don't materialize for those 2 years. Next slide, please. So here we have a summary of our department expenditures. I'm just going to touch base on the major changes from the current year forecast. So for the non-departmental, the main changes due to the transfers that were approved by council for the Lucky Park Pool project. Then we also had a transfer for the animal control improvement and the wastewater treatment plan. For community development, the change is mainly due to changes in the department's personnel. As you may recall, there was a transition with our community development director, so that change is going to be reflected in year 1. Law enforcement. So law enforcement continues to increase significantly over the years. One major change is our the approval of 1 sheriff detective, which contributed to that 12% increase from prior year. Next slide. So for the second year, the major changes in the non-departmental again, we included, as you may recall, we're working with the county, with CalPERS and the water district to terminate the fire pension plan. So that's going to be included in year 1 of our budget, and so that's the main change in that non-departmental category. Next slide. So one of our main challenges this year was that our revenue sources did not increase in the same proportion as our major expenditures. So if you look at this table, our revenue sources, our top 5 revenue sources, have only increased, between 2 to 3% year over year. However, our expenditures have been increasing by 10 and 12%. So we need to find additional sources, if we continue with this trend. So that was our main challenge this year. And if you go to the previous, I'm sorry, not the previous slide, the next slide, for just law enforcement itself. So if you look at, changes from 2017 to the 2-year budget, again, our costs have been increasing between 7 and 12%. Again, it's not in the same proportion as our revenues have increased. So that was our main challenge this year. Some of the new items that we're including in the 2-year budget, and again, this is in line with the strategic priorities that City Council had provided to us. And we have $1.7 million for the fire safety termination plan, which I'll discuss in more detail. Then we also have $105,000 for an animal control vehicle, $75,000 for housing and homeless activities and programs, which that was one of the priorities of the council. Financing for ball field lights, again, another priority of the council. Community event activities, $50,000. And an emergency response plan for $25,000, and a budget module for $10,000 as our as IT improvement. So as I mentioned, our biggest uncertainty right now is our fire termination plan. So we were provided by CalPERS with a evaluation, and basically, by the time we close the plan, or which could be in 3 to 4 months, if at that time the rates are at 4%, we are only going to need about $193,000 from our reserves to close out that plan. But if the rates are at 3.75%, then we're going to be underfunded by $473,000. So I checked the rates in April 18, and they were at 3.91%. I checked the rates for today, and they're at 3.77%. So we just don't know, what the current market, like what the rates are going to be. I mean, hopefully they're in the higher 4%, but so again, that's one of the major uncertainties that we're having to work with in this 2-year budget. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of what our reserves have looked like for the past 2 years. So in 2022, our reserves were at 67% of our total expenditures. And for this 2 years, for the 2-year budget, they're at 49%. And it's not so much that we're digging into our reserves. The first year, yes, we are for that fire safety termination plan. But then in the subsequent year, we're not digging into our reserves. But the main factor is our expenditures. Our expenditures keep going up. So the higher our expenditures, the lower our reserve is. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not that, if you see this trend, it's not that we're going into our reserves, it's just our expenditures. And I think Frank, next slide, please. So we have some items that were not included in the budget. I think, Frank, you may have more details on
so thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Great presentation. And, we're bringing forth the budget, given the direction that the council has given me, and then working with staff. Some things, as mentioned before, we want to have a balanced budget, but some things just didn't make it into it based on some other kind of confirmation or conversations that we've had. One of which, and actually Eli texted me before the meeting, if you all of you have been down to the pool, we get this great looking brand new pool, and with the old building that was there, it's not painted. The HVAC's got the swamp cooler is old, and the front door is probably needs replacement. For $15,000, probably would get that into good shape in comparison to the rest of the facility, and that's not in the budget. The Boys and Girls Club, I know Miss Minitry and I kind of were talking a little bit about it today. We were one of the things that we have heard, or Carrie has specifically told me, is one of the areas that is underserved is the preteen area. We used to have a youth club at the Patriotic Hall that no longer exists, and we've approached the Boys and Girls Club about potentially looking at an expansion to 29 Palms. We followed up with them today on further conversations with them to figure out what the business plan and model is, but nothing is in the budget currently. So I just wanted to let you know we're having those conversations, but nothing currently is in the budget. I know I've been approached by Pacific Clinics. I think I got a meeting coming in a couple weeks on this. They used to be on Adobe Road, are no longer here. They're looking for a public-private partnership for a facility. We don't have a facility that they can rent. All of our facilities that we have are being occupied, but nothing of that is being addressed within the budget. Outreach and polling services, as it relates to the strategic plan and very specifically the animal shelter and Theater 29 expansion, we can't do those pay-as-you-go. It will probably be in the neighborhood, animal shelter specifically, $8 to $10 million plus or minus, depending on scope. We can't pay as you go, and as you saw early in the earlier slide, we have about $6.5 million reserves, which is healthy reserves, but we don't want to use all of our reserves on that. So what we probably would have to do is to go out and bond on it, get a loan on it. But just like your house, getting a loan, you got to have a source of income to pay the loan, right? That potentially could be a ballot measure. We right now don't have any outreach or polling fees in there currently. I need to get some dollars in there for that, but currently I do not. Then finally, I know Mr. Gardner is kind of working with the PAC, Public Arts Advisory Committee, on augmentation of their funding. Currently, their budget is $15,000, and they're asking for $31,000, so it's an augmentation of about $16,500. So those are just some of the items that I know we've been discussing, either on a staff level or with the council, that currently are not in the budget. And just from a process perspective, it becomes a zero-sum game in a lot of cases. So if you give policy direction on anything that you want to see in the budget that maybe is not in the budget, what that basically takes is for us to go back and re-look at the budget, re-engineer it, if you will, maybe eliminate to add, by way of example.
So I have one more slide. So for recommendations, like I said, this is just a preliminary. There's no approvals required. We do have one adjustment for the fiscal year 22-23 budget, and is an additional $104,000 for the sheriff's contract. I believe they already brought their contract in Schedule A for approval, so this is part of that augmentation for their services.
And one additional thing, worth noting in relationship to the budget is mentioned. The two biggest pieces are the law enforcement and your human resources, your people of the city working to deploy your goals and objectives. Last year, as you recall, had a high inflationary period last year, and COLA last year was 6.8%, I think it was.
6.9.
6.9? Mm-hmm. 6.9%. This year, when we use the Riverside County State of California CPI index, and it's showing 4.6.
4.6.
Yeah, 4.6 this year. Year two of this 2-year budget, we're anticipating, we're hoping inflation gets under control, going back to 2.5% the second year.
So are you asking for recommendations on the slide before that?
Yeah,
Over
you know,
here?
any comments on any piece of the budget? So yeah,
Well,
this and
with
anything.
with those things coming up, I would be okay with dropping number 5 and leaving their budget at 15,000 to see what they're going to do with it this year.
Anybody else?
I agree.
So do I. Okay. Open up to the public. Anybody want to comment on this item?
I actually have a question for Abigail.
Okay.
On the slide you mentioned.
If you could go up to the, so we can record it, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Manager. You had mentioned that revenues went up by 3% and the expenses were increasing by 12%. Was the line items more CapEx expenses or admin expenses, the 12%? CapEx means you have an old building, you have to renovate it.
No, so it's just mainly law enforcement services, like salaries and benefits and legal fees.
Well, in fact, law enforcement is,
Just operating expenses.
well, in fact, we just think should take care of it. We do need our first responders in the city to keep the city safe. Thanks, in fact. And then you also showed a slide where you had the reserves in 2022, but you had almost 11% decrease the following year, a further 11% decrease. In the third and fourth year, you kind of plateaued out. Was that just your projections, or what was it based on? Are you expecting more income to start coming in, and what's that source?
No, so the way that our reserves are calculated is our unassigned fund balance by our total expenditures. So as I mentioned, the more the expenditures go up, our reserve balance is gonna go down. So
Yeah.
if you look at that's the slide that you were referring to.
Yeah.
right? So in year 22, we had less expenditures compared to our forecast, and for 22, 24, that's almost, $3 million in increase.
On that 67% of reserves, was this more grants that you got from the state that helped your reserves get up, or was it the city-generated income through those sources that you said?
For total expenditures?
No, in fact,
revenues,
you had said in 2022 you had a reserve of 67%, 23 is going to fall down to 58%. Was a major income for the city
He should be
got
addressing
from
it in front of
grants?
the council.
No, our grants are not included
Not
in
included.
this calculation.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
mainly our reserves and total expenditures.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor, the only reason I was asking this, in fact, I actually belong to a different WhatsApp group, and somebody on a WhatsApp group posted that one of the city is struggling to make payments, and I love our city. I hope our city doesn't get into that situation. But I think with the city manager, good finance director, good people, we'll be okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and just to underscore that, there's the state of California ranks cities from 1, which is bad, to 486 cities, which is 486 is good. We're in the top percentile. I want to say, gosh, we're like 440 out of 480, which is good. Again, 480 being the best. So we're very solid financially. And this chart very specifically that you're looking at, we're not touching reserves, right? Other than the fire department termination that we talked about, right? We're not touching it. So it's only a denominator-related issue. It's something that, because it's the numerator is the 6.5 million, the denominator is the 13 million. So you divide it, and that's the percentage, right? So the higher the denominator, the lower the percentage, right, when the number doesn't change. So one of the things we're probably going to have to do is to come back to council to kind of look at our reserve policy, because we set it as a percentage. But the problem with that is we don't touch it and the percentage goes down if expenses go up. So we're going to have to adjust that and bring that forth.
Okay.
And I just wanted to address Bino's point about grant, the cities have to pay back grant funding. And so we engage our auditors to conduct single audits. And part of their review process is to make sure that we are using our grant funds for only allowed expenditures. And, part of that process is, we want to make sure that we're not going to pay back our grant funding. So just wanted to reiterate that.
Thank you very much. You give great presentations.
Thank you.
Not that 50 slides that I put together.
84. Yeah.
He won't forget that one.
Okay. All right. So now we're looking for approval of this budget adjustment. So need a motion.
And any other comments that you have? We heard about the number 5, but if anything else you had, just let us know.
Yeah, you have a green slip. And please address the council.
Absolutely. Hello, council. My name is Terrence Latimer. Thank you for the presentation, by the way. I'm starkly opposed to cutting line item 5 regarding the arts. I think the arts are absolutely necessary to everything that we're doing in 29 Palms. As it relates to the diversification of the way that we are seeking revenue or income into the city, I think it does become, sort of all of our responsibilities to figure out ways to bring new money in. And so just being mindful that revenues from property taxes is going to be something that we want to focus on. I think it's how do we get more houses in, how do we get more people staying within the region. And I think, the other part about that is, being able to look at what some of our neighbors are doing. I was hanging out in Desert Hot Springs this past weekend, and we all know, I think, what was going on in Desert Hot Springs not even 10 to 15 years ago, right? They brought in some additional revenues in the form of opening up to additional industries in the form of cannabis, right? That then became I believe, I can't remember what the report that I read, but that became the #2 source of revenue generation within that city within a very short turnaround time. So I think it becomes on us to start looking at what's happening around us and how do we begin to participate in some of those, auxiliary industries so that we are not taking away things, right? I know the arts is something that, seems like it is superfluous, but it's not, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I address that?
Hold on. Okay, any more public comments? Okay, close the public comments. Okay, go ahead.
So, with this new budget, in our strategic planning, we've actually set aside about, I think, $50,000, was it in the budget? Yeah, to do events, and those events are going to be art related. And so in this preliminary budget, we're not cutting the PAC spending or the PAC's budget. We're maintaining the PAC budget, but we are going to be doing more events in the city. It's really important. I agree with Mr. Latimer. We have to find another way to increase our revenue in the city. And, we can't rely on TOT tax forever. So we got to increase our sales tax. We got to bring tourism here. So I agree. I just wanted to note that the city council is prioritizing events, and there is $50,000 that we're going to be allocating to community organizations to put on events.
And just to piggyback off of that, one of the things, and I've talked to the council about that $50,000 is in there. So one of the things from a deployment perspective, staff will be asking for is 2 members of the council, very similar to how we do CDBG, that maybe we have a call for events from our community members. It could be arts, music, whatever. They give the proposal, the 2 members, make the allocation and bring it to the full council for approval. So that's staff's idea for deployment of that.
Okay. So I'm still looking for a motion to approve that one part.
I'll make a motion that we approve a budget adjustment of $104,090 in the general fund for fiscal year 2022-23 for sheriff's contract cost increase. And that's a partial year for detective and current fiscal year. And review comment on the 2-year budget.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Scott?
Aye.
Councilmember Klink?
Aye.
Councilmember Mintz?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bildering?
Aye.
Mayor Wright?
Aye.
Approved 5-0.
Okay, Captain, we would like to meet him or her.
Who?
We would like to meet them. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, the detective?
Yes.
Yeah, they haven't hired the detective yet, but definitely.
Yeah, I know.
once- Yeah.
He can hear me.
Yeah, I was like, we're talking about financing.
Yeah.
I fall
Everybody's
asleep.
looking
What
around.
happened here?
Yeah, but once we hire that detective, we definitely will bring him or her to the council.
Yes. All right. Number 17, Wastewater Advisory Committee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So as part of the overall wastewater project, we want to ensure that outreach has properly been done. And one of the things that I realize personally going through the Yucca Valley process is one of the pieces is how much money is probably the biggest discussion point that people care about. Again, not the only thing, but that is one of the big things. And so we're asking the council to appoint a member each member to appoint a person to the Wastewater Advisory Committee. One of the pieces that will be coming forth and beginning in May, we'll be looking at rate studies, we'll be looking at technologies, we'll be looking at operations, many things as it relates to the wastewater project. And that would be your sounding board, your focus group, if you will, to get intel back to you. It's an advisory board to you. Staff did put out there through our outreach consultants solicitation of members of the community to be participants. We do have some members that are on the staff report, I think 5 or so. But council can pick someone outside of that list as well. That just provides an opportunity for members for you. So again, staff would be happy to answer any questions. And back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions for staff? Okay, open up to the public. Anybody commenting on this one?
Oh, yes. Y'all be waiting for this one, I'm sure. Greetings, council.
Yes.
Oh, I do, I'm sorry. So attached to it. First off, could I get the other people that are here with Stop the Sewer to raise your hands real quick? So I just wanted to let you guys know that there's a bunch of us here. Your community cares a great deal about this issue. You mentioned about outreach. I discovered that most people didn't know that this plan was going to happen. Most of the people I talked to in my neighborhood had no idea this was occurring. So we sent out a postcard to 3 routes to let people know that this was going to happen. And we're against the sewer for 3 general reasons, which I'll elucidate on later. Let's see. But the only proper course is to stop this plan entirely, because it's going to cause it's going to be too expensive. It's going to destroy our neighborhoods. It's going to cost the city money in terms of tourism. The location for the sewer treatment plant is a very unfortunate location. It's going to end up smelling, even though I know that you've been told that it won't smell. A properly maintained sewage plant won't smell. But as I see you cutting little bits of the budget and worrying about where the money is going to come from and things like that, we fear that you're not going to be able to maintain the sewer plant that's in our neighborhood to the degree that's going to be needed to keep it from ruining our neighborhoods. And that's all I have to say now. Thank you.
Okay, any more green slips?
Mayor, in fact, I can understand the gentleman, this concern. If you're going to go ahead with the sewer treatment plant, may I suggest that we keep the sewer treatment plant along this commercial section of 29 Palms Highway, starting from Panorama to maybe Utah Trail, and half mile south, half mile north. Now, I know I've talked to the city manager, and his concern was the this in Donald Hill. I've been to Switzerland, I've been to in Japan, and Donald Hill is like an ant-heap compared to some of the mountains that they've tunneled through. And in case we have, concern that who will be able to tunnel through, everybody has heard the name Elon Musk. He lived not too far from me in South Africa. I can always talk to him, and he can come and take the contract up to tunnel and make that happen. And I think if you have the commercial section done, it'll help the city achieve what they want. Residents can only pay a certain amount and probably be tough, and they actually spread out. So let's look at this thing. Half mile south of 29 Palms, half mile north from Panorama right to Utah, and see whether we can do a sewer treatment plant that way. Thank you.
Any more green slips? You can bring it up. You can bring your green slip up, please.
I would just like to say that I live on...
Could you please tell us your name and...
My name is Ronnie Tyner, and I live on Tamarisk Avenue, and they did the Phoenix whatever project thing with the big stadium and everything, and I live there. And already I'm getting pounding in my home. Noise pollution is getting really bad. The air is getting bad. And this is the only place I can live. So I'm just wondering, am I going to be tortured by the noise? You guys are talking about events. They've had a couple events already that it's just been just unbelievable, like 3 or maybe.
Is this related to wastewater?
No, it's not, but it's
okay,
related
so
to
you,
my quality of life.
Yeah, but you gotta wait till public comments.
Oh, okay.
All right. Anybody else on item number 17? Okay, close it, bring it back to council.
Frank, let me just make a comment about what their concerns is. Obviously, when the outreach starts, would there be a way we could even get a bus that would, because we have toured the plant in Yucca Valley, and we walked all the way through it, and only there's a couple places indoors where you could even know that you were in any kind of sewer plant. This is not like the one on base. It's not like Lake Bandini. We're not proposing to make it those open ponds. So anyway, I'm just making a comment that it's not open ponds that we're looking at, but the plant in Yucca Valley can be toured. And maybe when we do the reach out, we can try to help that out.
I understand. I looked at that plan, sir.
Okay. Okay.
So I live in that neighborhood where the treatment plant is going to be, the neighborhood what I'm calling historic Midtown, right? It is the heart of the city. It is the heart of, a lot of our working class people. It's the heart of where a lot of our tourists actually come and visit. And I will say this, if it's maintained properly, it probably won't smell. But the problem is that we're not Yucca Valley. We don't have the revenue that Yucca Valley has to maintain it, right? Yucca Valley has a lot of sales tax. We don't. So we have to look at that. I don't know if that treatment plant's going to be maintained well, and I don't want to risk my community.
So are you looking for our recommendation of who we want?
Yes.
My recommendation is Don Benton. He's a long-term resident here, has a vested interest in 29 Palms. He's a licensed contractor, and he's done multi-million-dollar projects when he used to work on the Marine Corps base, all the way from the start of them and budgeting them, all the way down to construction of them. So I think he'll be a good insight on what our consultants are telling us. He'll at least be able to give us some technical data, and obviously, he definitely likes to stay on budget. So my recommendation is Don Benton.
Okay. You got a recommendation?
Yeah, I would like to recommend the former mayor, Carmeletto Gilvey, to the committee. She was on the ad hoc committee for the sewer plan, so she's going to be able to speak to the history of it, and there it is.
Okay. Joe?
And I'm going to nominate Carolee Hargrove. She's been a long-term resident here in 29 Palms, was on the Morong Unified School District Board for many years. And she has big concerns for the city of 29 Palms and how it's going. So it might be a good idea that we have somebody there too for both sides, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
My nominee, I think he is here. Nate Mathers. He's been a long-term resident. I think he got stationed here He got stationed here, right? And then he has a lot of expertise working at the wastewater plant and the water treatment plant on base. Prior to my first career after Marine Corps, we worked together on projects. He's expertise. He's the guy that I would go to, even if he's not on this committee. But he's my nominee.
Okay, and my nominee is Gerald Turner. No experience in wastewater, so he's a citizen at large.
That's a good one.
Okay, so that's all we needed, right?
Yep, staff has direction.
All right. Number 18, mitigate negative declaration for wastewater reclamation project phase 1.
You want to do it? You wanna do it?
We're going to do a little bit of a tag team presentation here. All right, so this is the area that would be covered by the proposed wastewater treatment system, divided up into several phases within phase 1. Excuse me. And we do have a bit of a background. Frank, did you want to go over that?
Yeah, so as the council will recall, the latter part of 2021, we were able to acquire some money from State Water. State Water, supplies resources to disadvantaged communities to ultimately sewer your communities. And so they allocated $983,000 for us initially, one of which of the steps was what we're going to talk about next, which is environmental. At that point in time, we were working on a feasibility, which was in this grant to have a joint use with the base, the Marine base. The Marine base at that time got an earmark from Congressman Cook of $70 million. That once the base got that money, went out for bid, but it came out higher than the $70 million that they received. So Congressman Cook ended up retiring. Congressman Obernolte came in support of our local base. Also got another earmark through within the Milcon funding. But then at that same time they went out to bid, the bids came out higher than those two earmarks that they had. At that very same time, the state of California came out with the septic to sewer funding. And as the base was working through the process, we decided that it made more sense because we couldn't ask the state for money to a bridge to nowhere, right? We couldn't ask them for piping without a treatment solution. So at that time, we located the plant on Adobe in Amboy. Was the first location of the plant. And in working collaboration with our engineers, our partners at the Water District, we decided to move the treatment plant from that location to the location that is currently discussed in the map this evening. Generally speaking, State Route 62 and Utah Trail. That location, the reason that location was preferable, again, non-political but more operational, that it was away from the fluoride removal facility of the Water District. And also, too, it was centrally located. And Matt may have to correct me, maybe a nod, or we have four aquifers in the city. And we wanted to have it centrally located because right now our septic tanks are recharging our aquifers. So we wanted, and once we take away those septic tanks, we still wanted to have the ability to disperse that treated water to replenish our aquifers. So looking at the topography of the area goes from west to east. So the engineers, came up with a system that preferably is gravity. To Vino's comment earlier, absolutely, engineers, they can design anything, right? I mean, all you have to do is to give them a task, and they will design anything. It always is a matter of cost, of designing things. What we wanted is something that was efficient and effective, and gravity, gravity goes back to the Romans, and to have little moving parts as possible, because moving parts break, and you would prefer just to have flow, a downward flow. So that is the history of how we got to the site. The project, the scope was defined to that, back in late 2022, over a few iterations. Terra Nova, which we have here this evening to talk about the process, the CEQA process. Terra Nova did the CEQA process. CEQA is California Environmental Quality Act. And so they began in, I think it was November, or at least the latest iteration of it in November, to be able to complete by March of this year, last month. Ultimately, the ultimate goal is to submit this grant application to the state. One of the requirements from the state is to be shovel-ready, okay? Shovel-ready meaning having environmental done, have technical done, and have financial done. So the technical and financial have been submitted to the state. This is the last step in the process, which is environmental, which I'll turn it back over to Keith and to Kelly to talk about the process of CEQA. And one last point, on the financial side of it. And the goal that the council has given us is this is the largest pot of money that we've seen in a long time with wastewater. And the goal is to, from a capital perspective, is the residents don't pay anything. That's from private connections, that's from the municipal system. The only thing that would be, and we're working through that process currently, that the residents would pay is like your water bill, is your operational bill. And so that is one thing that we're working through right now. So again, turning it back over to Keith and to Kelly.
All right, I'd like to introduce Kelly Clark from Terra Nova.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Kelly Clark, Terra Nova Planning and Research. And next bullet, Keith. So an initial study was prepared pursuant to CEQA, as Frank had mentioned, and it is also consistent with the CEQA Plus requirements of the State Water Resources Control Board for both the environmental review and federal coordination. Basically, the state project, the CEQA project, there are federal funds involved, so there are our analysis that are federal cross-cutters that we also included in this document to make sure we cover both the state requirement as well as federal requirements. All project impacts were found to either have no impact, a less than significant impact, or an impact that can be mitigated to less than significant impacts. And the mitigation measures we provided include air quality such as odor, biological resources, cultural resources, geology, and noise. And a 30-day public review period was initiated on March 22nd, 2023, ended on April 20th, 2023. And the city received 2 written comments during that comment period from the Mojave Air District as well as SCAG. Both required, no action was required for those 2 comments. And currently in progress is the environmental analysis checklist for the EPA, so the federal funding portion of that. Basically what I'm going to be doing is going over their environmental checklist and doing an annotated outline of sorts showing where we have analyzed their federal crosscutters within this document that was prepared. Next slide. Oh, and estimated completion for that is about 30 days after CEQA approval and adoption. So just a quick summary of the mitigation measures for air quality and odor control plan. For biological resources, there will be a worker environmental awareness program. That's to identify various species identified within this document for the construction workers as they're working. This is a large swath of land, so just so that they'll be able to identify if there are any sensitive species they need to be aware of. Biological monitoring for special status plants and animals, desert tortoise mitigation, nesting birds burrowing out, as well as jurisdictional drainages. Cultural includes Native American monitoring, and just monitoring agreements if any artifacts are found and the correct process to address those concerns. Geology, liquefaction analysis, paleontological monitoring is required. And for noise, a noise reduction plan. And again, the noise reduction plan and the odor control plan are primarily for the wastewater treatment plant itself. And Keith?
All right, so what we're recommending is that the City Council adopt a mitigating negative declaration and authorize staff to commence moving forward with the project and to take any necessary actions to bring it forward to completion.
Okay, any questions for staff?
Sure. What do we have to do to move the plant?
To move the plant, you would have to study from an environmental perspective, study the new area, and purchase the land. I mean, really, those are the 2 things to it. There would be an engineering component to it to add additional piping if it is further, but yeah, those are the steps in summary.
Sure. When I research online, it says that the distance for these things, and they can be closer, right? Because it's a utility, it doesn't matter about zoning. But it usually says that they have to be about a mile away from housing. How do we get there?
How do we get a mile away from the housing?
Yeah, what type of policy direction should we be giving to move the plant?
Well, just move the, policy direction would be just to move the plant, yeah.
How does that affect this grant?
Well, so a couple things. The grant that's in front is first come, first serve. So, to look at the environmental side of it, I'm guessing you'd have to, at least 30 or so days to study a new.
It depends. If cultural's involved, cultural could take anywhere from 3 to 4 months to complete. If it's in an area that wasn't previously surveyed, so it really depends on the site.
Yeah, it's first come, first serve. So what the state wanted is in November, to have a pre-application in, and so we submitted that pre-application into November, and with full applications in by June. So we're getting ours in, May basically. So it'll be in on time. So what they will do then from that point is start, the environmental will be the first piece that they review before they start giving preliminary awards out. Yucca Valley has the biggest ask out there. It's 177. Ours is 158. Then there's a bunch of them, $30 to $50 million. So they're oversubscribed. So it's again first come, first serve. So yeah, there's others that will be ready. I think the state told me there's $1.5 billion worth of asks for this $350 million worth of funds.
Okay, thank you.
So if we go after this grant, right, and we go with it and we have this plan, that we're operating off of. And the community is, and it's detrimental to the community in the long run. The next 10 years, the plant, you know, it fails. And now none of these mitigation, you know, things that we're talking about won't even work. I'm trying to find a solution to help that neighborhood. I like what Vino said. I think that we should be concentrating on 62 and going all the way down to Encilia and working on commercial buildings. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep that promise based off this plan that no resident will have to pay for the hookup. It seems like it's going to be expensive. I would rather focus on commercial buildings that are along 62 because that's where the need is. And I think that if we do that, it'll spur growth, economic growth on 62, and we will have, we'll increase our sales tax, and it'll be a thriving downtown.
Okay, any more?
Well, this is going to do downtown. Downtown in phase 1 will be hooked up to this. So, and I can say, there is a distance between those houses. I know that area well, and there's a way to mitigate the smell. It's not. This is a modern plant. This is not what everybody thinks it is.
You got it. You put that on. I'm getting ready to open up the public. So, any more questions for staff?
So if moving the location, say from where it's at now, closer to Utah Trail, where there's no homes, because I can guarantee you, wherever you put this in the city limits, there's going to be people that are going to complain. They're going to say, "I don't want the smell," no matter where you put it. I don't care where, if it's a mile away from you or 2 miles or whatever. They're going to complain about having a wastewater treatment plant close to their house. So I don't know, maybe moving it closer to Utah Trail if we could do it. There's not that much over that way.
So I'm sorry.
It's not moving it too far.
So if we move that way towards Utah Trail, it does two things. It puts it into the zone where our earthquake thing happens. I'm sorry, can't think right now. And it also puts us in our flood zone.
Okay, so now what are we gonna do?
If we go all the way east, over, towards where the tracks are, there's barely any houses over there, and also it is zoned industrial.
Okay, any more questions for staff? Okay, open up for the public. Green slips. Okay, Vino. Y'all can bring y'all green slips up.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for staff. What's the chances of taking the sewer treatment plant west right up to Panorama and to Councilman Danman's question that we all drive up Highway 62 and we see there's quite a bit of development happening on the west side of town, and there's big gaps that could potentially be developed and bring us extra revenue that our city would love to have, and it'll increase the tourism in town. So what's the chances of taking this thing going west?
Well, all it takes would be is policy direction from a staff perspective.
Okay. I have an old saying that if money in my pocket is going to give me a headache tomorrow, I don't need it. Like Councilman Scott said that, hey, you know what, this might be a problem in the city 10 years from now. Thanks.
Okay. Joseph, that's a Carter.
I'll try to do a better job this time. All right, Council, thank you for the privilege. Can we go back to the map again? Can we bring the map out so we can see like the whole? Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. For one thing, I just want to say that I agree with Councilman Scott, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name yet, but to the west there, like that's downtown, but this whole area over there on the west, that needs a sewer. That place needs to be developed. We could do so much with that, and like Councilman Scott said, pay for a sewer with sales tax and have it be a net revenue generator instead of a city expense. But the main thing that I want to say is about the smell. I did go to visit the one in Yucca, and it doesn't smell like sewage right now, A, because it's new, B, it smells like the chemicals that it takes to take the sewage smell out. Now, it's not a very bad smell, but if you were in, say, my house with the swamp cooler running at 120 degrees with it pumping that air in, what you guys smelled on your tour is entirely different than what we're going to smell in our neighborhood, even if the thing is functioning. Then, again, as Councilman Scott said, there's a fault over there. What if a little earthquake happens? Not a major one, just a small one, just enough to knock something off its bearings, and we don't have enough money to fix it. You know, that's just one of those things. And then the last thing is, people coming out of the park and driving down Utah Trail, that's up on a hill. So the entire drive down, you see a sewage treatment facility, even if you move it over to the Utah side. Everybody coming out of the park is going to see our sewage treatment facility. People are going to go into the park in Joshua Tree, cool, hip, neat Joshua Tree, and they're going to come out and see our sewage treatment plant, and we're going to be Sewer City. And it's true. And then my neighborhood is filled with Airbnbs. And those people, even if they don't smell it, they're there for the view. The view in my neighborhood is amazing. It's incredible. That's why people come and take their vacations here, is the incredible views in the area. You know, this thing is going to be visible from Turtle Rock Casino. You're going to be up at Turtle Rock Casino, and you're going to look out at this beautiful vista, mountains, sunset, the lights of the base. It's gorgeous. We all know how beautiful that is. I take pictures of it every time I see it because it's beautiful. There's going to be a sewer treatment plant right in the middle. The thing lights up at night, our dark skies. I can see the Milky Way from my backyard. I can watch the meteors from my backyard. That's why I moved here. That's why I love it here. You're going to take that away. That young lady over there just bought a house in the neighborhood.
That's your time, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Holmes, you got public comment. Are you wanting to comment on this item?
Yes, real quick. Thank you for this moment. My name is Pamela Holmes. I've been a resident in Twentynine Palms 40 plus years. That's because we went overseas. Environmental. I don't mind sharing my area with the coyotes, a few snakes, certain snakes, not all, the quails, a few lizards. My question is, it was stated that the plant in Yucca was looked at. Did anybody talk to the residents around that plant, number one? Number two, Lake Bandini. I recall a few times Lake Bandini did break down. That smell is horrendous. I wouldn't want to be eating steak, whatever, smelling Lake Bandini. I wouldn't want to be asleep at night inhaling chemicals. Our neighborhood, we don't have the high range houses over there, the pricey. Any cost, it will affect us. It will affect our taxes. It will affect our income. It will affect our children, our elderly, retirees in that area. 29 Palms is huge. There are other areas that this plant can be placed. And come on, some of you have been here as long as I have. I know you can find a solution. We voted the right way. Thank you, Councilman Scott.
Okay. Terrence Latimer.
So just in terms of the grant process, I'm just sort of wondering if there was like I know you have like the primary recommendation, is there a secondary or tertiary recommendation And if so, why not?
Yeah, so it has to be shovel-ready. So, yeah, so it's got to be submitted shovel-ready, then they'll pick, you know, the projects that they feel that are ready. So the timeline, and I should probably go back to this, the state wanted, the reason that this $350 million came about was there was extra money during COVID that came to the state of California. So they put money aside, $350 million, for septic to sewer conversions with a tight time frame. So, because they wanted to show projects quickly. So it has to be under construction by 2024, complete by 2026. So it wasn't a protracted time frame. It was a quick.
So we had a short time window. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have Karen Harper.
Hello, Mayor, and to the council at large. I'm pretty excited about this. I don't think y'all know. I'm really excited about this project because I own some property here. And I think that this is phenomenal. You know, I've been here since '91. And I can't even tell you, I don't live over there. I have, you know, some property over there. I just think it's a good idea. I'm so tired of the septic, you know what I mean? I really am. But I think if the sewer plant comes, I think it's a wonderful idea. Frank, I think you're on the right track. As far as cost, I own a home in DHS. I pay $693 a month for sewer. It's on the taxes. And I asked, how long am I going to have to pay that? Forever, they said. I don't know what that means, but that's what I pay. So I'm just looking, if it happens, I don't have a problem paying. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think y'all are on the right track. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, just to kind of piggyback off of that, that's why this is unique and an opportunity. You know, Desert Hot Springs, Yucca Valley, and most communities, quite frankly, these utilities have to be paid on the burden of the residents, right, on the customers, right? So by way of example, in Yucca Valley, I think it was, you know, again, the sales tax reduced it, but I think it started at like $12,000 per resident, financed over 20 years, right? That's the typical process of how you pay for it, right? Our unique opportunity right now is we can get 100% of the money, you know, so there wouldn't be any, you know, property tax assessment. Now, there's no guarantee we get the money, right? But at least, you know, being at the table is the first step of it. The only thing that I hear from the council in direction is you know, if we get a lesser amount than 158, we'd have to kind of reduce that phasing, you know, to match the dollars that we do have, so the residents don't have to pay anything. The only thing that they would be paying, though, just like your water bill, just like your electric bill, just like your gas bill, would be a wastewater bill, and that's just operations. And that's how it's funded. So it's an enterprise fund. So wastewater is an enterprise fund. It's not a general fund. It's an enterprise fund. So general revenues, in theory, don't subsidize it, in theory. The wastewater rates will pay 100% of the operation plus capital, you know, so that's it. That's what it should be, an enterprise separate from your general fund. So I just wanted to, you know, piggyback off of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, no more green slips. Close it to the public.
So,
Bring it back to council.
Yes, when they were talking about moving this, one of the reasons, Frank, when he first alluded to it, he said we have 4 aquifers, and this was where the water district said was the best place to put it. So I guess if Matt's here, if he could address, if we move this all the way to the west end, that's where one of the aquifers are, correct?
I wouldn't say the water district picked the location, though. So first and foremost,
Well, I didn't mean that. I just meant this was the.
So it is still in the Mesquite Aquifer. The 2 locations that were picked are still in the Mesquite Basin. So the Mesquite is where we pull 2,100 gallons a minute out of this community for drinking water, high in natural fluoride. Part of the discussion is once it's treated, how do we get it back to the aquifer? So that's why the Water District has always thought about advanced treatment, and we have to decide those things. But yes, where it was down at the plant, if you guys come and visit the treatment plant, where our wastewater ponds are, or our evap ponds, they're elevated about 15 foot above the Amboy Road. To go across the street and build the same plant and elevate a sewage plant in a flood zone was not a great location. So the district had concerns with it being so close to the treatment plant, and the concerns were listened to. So the city definitely listened. I would love to see it more east of Utah Trail where the houses weren't. But again, that was also a flood zone. So the one thing that the city has to have concern with is the flood zone is all over 29 Palms, and where do you find the best place to recharge this water? The main goal at the end of the day is as soon as this water is treated, it needs to get back to our aquifers to replenish the district. So the district has all concerns to make sure that sustainability and protection of groundwater are the two main factors of why we're doing this water treatment plant.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I just don't want to get into the situation Yucca Valley did, where they were forced to do it by the state, and they actually had to give them a timeline. If they hadn't done it when they did it, they were facing fines, and we have an opportunity to have our residents not have to pay for all this, the installation to be built and to be hooked up to it. I realize nobody wants anything in their backyard, like Councilmember Klink. Wherever we put this, somebody's not going to be happy, but we just have to mitigate whatever the concerns are.
59 square miles. I always say that. The city is 59 square miles. There's a lot of open land. I truly believe if we can move it all the way east to the edge of town, Mojave Road, near the tracks, that's not a flood zone, and it's not in an earthquake zone on a fault line. So I think that's a better location. If we're talking about getting the water back to the Mesquite Basin, engineers can do anything. We pump that water back.
Anybody else? You need a motion, right, Frank?
Yeah, we need the CEQA document considered for approval.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion.
So if we approve this negative declaration and we decide we want to move it, this would move this one forward, but we'd have to do another one if we decide to move the plant?
Yeah, we would have to do additional studies. So we would have to amend the CEQA document.
And that would delay our application, correct?
Yeah, so we, right now, once this is approved, assuming it's approved, then I think there's a 30 day, is it 30 day? Or we already submitted, we're complete with 30 day? Yes. We're complete with 30 day? So assuming it's approved, then Crollo Engineering would be submitting our grant application next week. So the financial, the technical is done, and so the only thing is remaining is the environmental. If you move it, then the technical would change, and then we'd have to update the environmental. Financial wouldn't change.
Okay.
How much more would it want to cost to go way out there by the?
Well, so I don't have.
We would just have a smaller wastewater treatment plant and smaller amount of people using it, correct?
Well, as I understand it, or at least as I understand the proposal, it would be the same connections. It would just be further east. And so what that would, there's two things there, right? There's capital and there's operation. So you would have more pipe going into an area, okay? So that has a cost. The bigger concern, would be operation. I know we appointed Nate this evening, from an operational perspective, and there's two things how wastewater moves. It's fall and it's velocity, okay? And so you want to fall, but you also want velocity. When there's no velocity, meaning toilets flushed and things moving, it'll, and this talk about smell, that's where smell happens, because it'll stop. And so we would have to get a jet router, we'd have to blow it. So when you have open areas of non-activity of just pipe, it would cause stagnation and an operational challenge. So you ideally speaking, and this is just ideally, obviously there's policy, right? Ideally speaking, you would want, dense, lots of connections and dense, So that's the best operational and for capital.
So that is a very good point. One of the reasons why I chose the proposal that I've been collaborating on is because if we go west, down 62, and we go all the way to Encilia, we're now starting to get restaurants that have high water usage. We're now getting all of our hotels. There's about 5 main hotels on that side. I know there's enough flow if we get those hotels.
Okay, so I'm still looking for a motion.
It just seems such a late in the game to change this whole. If we're not, this isn't one opportunity. If we don't get this opportunity, it's never going to come back. And then the residents, when we have to do it, because one day the state is going to make us do this, because they're making everybody do it. They're going to get a bill in the mail for $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. So,
yeah,
that's what we have to really consider here. That at least we can get started with this, and if running a pipe from the west this way is a lot cheaper than building that plant and running it the other way, because that's all uphill. So I'm gonna, I know this isn't going to be very popular tonight, but I am going to make a motion that we adopt and mitigate the negative declaration for the waste treatment project, phase 1, and authorize staff to commence moving forward in the project.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Scott,
Abstain.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Councilmember Mintz,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Buildering, Mayor Wright.
Aye.
Approved 401.
Okay. Future council initiated items. Anybody got any? Public comments. This is the time for the public to address the city council on issues within the jurisdiction of the city council that are not on this agenda. All comments are to be directed to the city council and shall not consist of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during their comments. This is a time limitation of 3 minutes per person. If you haven't already done so, please fill out name and address slips and get them to the city clerk. The city council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. Public comments on specific agenda items will be deferred until consideration of the item on the agenda. So I still have, I guess she don't want to talk no more. No, Pamela Holmes, she left. Mr. Carter, are you still talking public comments?
I don't actually have anything extra to add to that.
All right, thank you. And we have Tyner?
Yep.
Oh, yes, ma'am, okay.
I just wanted to discuss the issue with what I was speaking about before. I don't know, what are you guys planning on doing? Like I said, it's basically destroying my home and my life. So it was just, there's the mitigation. Is there any mitigation, or I don't know what they plan on doing as far as continuing to build where I live, and there's speeding cars, there's booming cars, there's motorcycles that are racing down constantly. I have to call the police almost every night. This is a true story. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Desperate Tamras.
Okay. City manager's update.
I'll be brief.
Wait, Frank, can you get with her after and get her number and get more detail?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, everything's really going on. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You have a number up there?
Oh, before you go, Frank, I was supposed to read these, but I don't know which topic they went with, because he just put topic 1 and topic 2. So let me read them for the record. Topic 1, according to many Twentynine Palms residents, we need affordable houses built because we have a shortage. My question is, what is the city doing to encourage builders to build low-income housing? And then topic 2, some of the opponents to the proliferation of short-term rentals have complained about noise from nearby short-term renters. I think the best solution moving forward would be requiring any new short-term rental be on lots of 1 acre or more. When filing for a new license, it could just be stated that the home must be on at least 1 acre. Respectfully, Jenny Malopoulos. Thank you very much. All right, and ma'am, we're prohibited from basically commenting because you did it in public comments, but our city manager is going to get with you, okay? Okay, now, Frank.
Okay, and I'll be brief. So just a couple things here, just to update the council. Sorry, I had it. No, you're good, you're good. I'm sorry, I closed my notes down.
You're on the clock.
So the is on the regular agenda. We had the Homeless and Housing Committee, formed, and they would be an augmentation of, not an augmentation of the Planning Commission, but the Planning Commission probably would augmentate the Homeless and Housing Committee. So there would be 7 members. They would meet after the Planning Commission. I think we said after, right? After or before the regular Planning Commission meetings. We do have a couple items that we'll be bringing forward with them. We did get and I think from a staff perspective, that would be a vetting organization for housing and homeless activities. We had portable showers that was proposed to the city by Mr. Mike Matty. I don't know if he's left already. But Shadow Mountain Church wants to operate portable showers for the homeless. They would operate it, but they're asking us to purchase it. So one of the things again, one of the first things that we'll have them, look at is an advisory board to the council. You have in your budget $75,000, for these type of activities that are out there. So they would be that sounding board there. So we would use that committee for things like that, things that come up, or just other activities to review. Staff continues to work on electronic transactions, to build. That was one of your priorities. So to be more effective from the community's perspective of getting permits and licenses and filing TOT taxes and many other things that are out there. So we continue to work on that electronic transaction. I think as mentioned earlier, the outreach will begin. I know we have CV Strategies in the audience this evening. We're going to try to put together that wastewater committee, advisory committee next week to have a kind of an introductory, depending on their schedules, an introductory meeting with them to kind of start vetting out some of the issues that are out there. The package treatment plant in Project Phoenix, Freedom Plaza, was out to bid. There was a successful bidder. We're working through that process right now to begin that process. And then finally, just to kind of, I already said it, but the environmental was the last component to submit that application to the state of California. So with the approval tonight, we will be submitting that last piece. The state has said that about 90 days to review the environmental, which is when they can give us a preliminary commitment of funding for the project. So that's what's kind of in front of us currently, and that concludes my comments, my brief comments.
Will that electronic payment include Park and Rec?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, Park and Rec is those of you who have children and working through the process there. It was an old technology that we had in Park and Rec. So now the new, Carrie's not here this evening, she's starting to roll this out, where we're going to have communication channels, for the city, the coach, the players, you know, because that always is an issue, not only signing up for the league, paying for your fees electronically, but the communication. So when's practice, when's the game, it's canceled, it's moved, whatever. You know, right now I think it's I don't know, phone calls maybe. I mean, I don't know, Steve, Danny, you know, those of you who participate in it, it's kind of old school how we communicate, right? And so, yeah, that technology is out there to make it easier to communicate, to pay, to sign up, and even to create leagues, you know, because right now we just do it all manually, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, meeting's adjourned.